All right, so welcome back to the APX podcast. And today we have another episode. This time, well, first of all, I want to say sorry for the break. I was on a 2 week break after I went to Europe for a couple of weeks, and that's why we didn't launch any podcasts during those 2 weeks. But yes, we're back, and I'll talk more about Europe on another episode. But today we have a great guest, a longtime friend, and specialty. Or not a specialty. He's a great chiropractor and a fast triathlete. Actually chasing him, I crashed at Oakland. That's a just fresh memory right now. Anyway, Dr. Nick Cruze, he's the founder and chiropractor at Premier Health Chiropractic. He has a BS in kinesiology from California State University from the East Bay. He's a doctor in chiropractor from Palmer University. He's also a certified strength and conditioning specialist. He's also got a certification in active release techniques. Among the other things out of chiropractic and triathlon, he's also been to Senegal, Nicaragua, and Nepal, building schools. He's married, and he's beautiful wife Michaela, and they're parents of two wonderful boys, Cal and remind me,
Cooper.
Cooper, Cal and Cooper, yes, and they're both under 3, 4 years old. Dude,
Yeah.
you're a master. All right, you got to tell me the secret of that. Anyway, to not make it any longer on the intro, I'll leave you guys with Dr. Nick Cruze.
Hi, thank you for having me. That was quite the intro. Appreciate it. I'm honored to join you. When you asked me last week, I thought it would be really fun, so I did some research and listened to a bunch of your podcasts, and they're awesome. They're really entertaining. Lots of coaches that are so knowledgeable in our sport. So I hope I don't bore people because I might not have all of that coaching insight in terms of triathlon, and this is a triathlon podcast. So hopefully I can impart some of the things that I do specialize in and not bore people too much.
Well, I mean, it's definitely not going to be boring. I mean, you are a triathlete yourself, and you've been treating athletes in your practice. So,
Yeah.
and one of the things that I wanted to talk about today, we'll get there, and I'll go back to this question when the moment comes. But it's like how chiropractic work is beneficial for athletes, right? But before we get there, let's talk a little more about yourself, right? Like how, and this is the way I like to start the podcasts. Like, how did you get started in triathlons? How was your first triathlon? And yeah, like all that with that grin. Yes, like tell me, like, what got you into triathlon? Like, how did that idea come into you first?
So our mutual friend Andrew and I, we were both working at Google at the time, and uh, we were kind of gym buddies, just working out together. And he got the idea to do a triathlon, threw it my way, and in our competitive nature, we kind of just started the banter, and that was only about, I don't know, 2 months away from the actual triathlon, but we were just naive and thought, well, yeah, we're buff. We could just we can just go do this thing. And that was Oakland Triathlon in 2014. It was their inaugural triathlon, and I've done each Oakland since. They haven't held it since COVID, but I feel like it's my hometown race, being born and raised in the East Bay. So it was fun to join the first one. And yeah, so that was my first intro into the sport.
Tell me, how did you prepare for it? What kind of gear did you bring to it? Like,
Um,
did you feel ready for it? Yeah.
yeah, well, I
Did you
had
feel ready
you.
first, and then so first did you feel ready, and then did you, like, how did you feel afterwards? And yes, you're mentioning, I remember this, that I kind
Yeah.
of like put you in your first steps through this. Yeah.
I'd say you were my first indirect coach, and I didn't necessarily have a written out plan and reporting on a daily basis back to you, as I know you do with a lot of your coaching athletes. But since we saw each other just about every day, I think it was just kind of in your nature. You couldn't help yourself as soon as you found out I was going to be doing this triathlon and entering your world. We were working in the same place. My first office was at the gym that you were doing training in. So you kind of, or maybe I forced you, I don't even know. You kind of just became my informal coach. And so like I just said, I naively felt very confident going into the race. And gear, I had a Cannondale CAD 4. I still have that bike. I love that bike. But just
Okay.
a little road bike, heavy, and it was a great bike to go do some casual riding on. Certainly not race on, but it did the job. I had a rented wetsuit from Sports Basement in the Presidio.
Yes.
And yeah, that was the gear, and mindset was very confident, feeling very fast, because I had never actually raced with anybody. I would just go out riding with casual riders, and I was maybe a little more fit than them, so that's all I had to compare to. So very, very humbled at my first race, um, right off the bat, in the swim, very humbled. And I don't know if you remember this, but you had told me that since it's my first triathlon and the first time swimming in a group, that I should go off to the side, and just kind of ease into the swim portion. Um, and in my head, I'm like, yeah, Luis, got it. But in my head, I'm like, hey, I've been swimming for 2 months. I should be good, right?
I
And
got
when you get
this.
out
Yeah.
there, I'm excited, and I see the first buoy, and you're just so nervous, but your sympathetic nervous system is making you think you're invincible. So here I am looking at the first buoy, like I remember what Louis said, and that probably would make sense, but fastest or shortest distance from point A where I'm at and point B, the finish line, is a straight line. So I'm just gonna go for it. And about, I don't know, maybe 10 strokes in, I just have a full panic attack. Getting hit by hands, goggles getting hit off. I mean, heart rate skyrocketing. If there would have been a kayaker next to me, I would have instantly grabbed that thing. Been disqualified, so I'm glad that there was no kayak right next to me, but I was freaking out. So my plan of, because I had looked up times online and seen these fast swims, so I'm going to be low 20 minutes, and I'll just do that. So they also said it's a good idea to be fast out of the water, so you don't have to pass a bunch of people on the bike. So I'll go do that again. Very naive. And so my plan of having a low 20s swim turned into me backstroking, just trying to catch my breath. So very humbled right off the bat. Um, and again, I'm glad there was no kayaker, because who knows, maybe I never get into the sport if
If you
if
have
I
been
grab onto that
disqualified, yeah.
kayak and get
Yeah, yeah.
some help. So those were wise words by you that I disregarded. But after that, I did use them, and I did
Okay.
start to ease into my swims. And to be honest, I don't know how many of your listeners took this long, but I probably had, I don't know, 10 or so races of panic attacks.
I
And
still have him every once in a while.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
each time I got a little bit better at accepting them and knowing that there's a chance they're going to come, and I could
Correct.
control it, just keep moving forward, just one little stroke at a time. The race will be there for you when you're ready. And so eventually was able to get comfortable in the water, but it took me a long time.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
As I said, I still get them every once in a while, and
yeah,
the way you describe the process of it, it's like,
yeah,
okay, it's just slow down, just
yep,
breathe, take every stroke
yep,
at a time, and like just like you will calm down and you will get through it.
yeah,
It's yeah,
yeah,
and step to the side if you're not on the side already.
yep,
You know, like
yep,
just swim to the side and get out of
yep,
the melee of swimmers. So
yeah,
yeah. So okay, that first race, back to it. And so you backstroked all the way to the water exit or
yep,
part of it, and you
yep,
got on your bike.
yep.
You got to the bike. How was that part?
If you've done Oakland, which you have, you know that
Yeah.
it's quite a T1. You get out of the water. Actually, pretty cool because
Yes.
you get out on a dock, and so there's a bunch of people helping you. So
Yeah.
you get pulled out of the water, really cool. Then you run to the train tracks. Then you run
Yes.
over the train
The
tracks,
train tracks. Yeah. You either
and
take the
then
elevator or run up the stairs.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so that was that was fun, and unique. Probably one of the longer T1s, but again, I don't know any different at this time. Get on the bike and still a bit naive since I didn't have the swim that I wanted. I'll just make it up on the bike. So then I just go crazy on the bike, crash, crash off my
You
bike.
crashed on the bike. Okay, on
I
this first
crashed on
race.
the bike. Um, and so, get done with the bike, feeling good. I at least felt like I had a good bike, right? Regardless of the time. It wasn't a disaster like the swim. And then go right into the run and there, no panic attacks, no faulty equipment, no crashes, and I just ran my butt off.
This is your
And
strength also. Running was your strength at
yeah,
that time already. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
I guess that at that time was my strength. I did run a lot, just recreationally for exercise. Moving to the city back in 2010, it was just such a great place to run, and there were people running, and so I just kind of hopped on board. So I had been running a lot, so I did feel very comfortable. Of the three, the most comfortable running for sure. And yeah, and I think back to it, there was really no plan as I now have a plan when I'm running. I've got my goals, I've got my mantras, I've got a whole list of things, mindset, all of this that I
Yes.
use nowadays for my running. um, then it was just, I was running for my life, and it's so funny to think back. I was just trying to catch everybody. It wasn't even that fast, but the effort was really high, and that got me really high on the close of the race. And I passed that, got through that finish line feeling very accomplished, even though the bike had its crash, the swim had its full 10 out of 10 panic attack. The run had me so jacked up that past that finish line, and I was like, let's do another one. I
I
want to
gotta
do
do
this.
this
This is
again.
really fun. Yeah. And I was very excited to report back to you on Monday at the gym how it went.
Yes. So okay, after this race, what was your next race? What did you do afterwards?
After that, I did South Bay Duathlon with you.
Yes.
Um,
I
yeah,
remember
that
that. I
was
caught you
fun.
on the bike, and then you were like you flew away.
Yeah, it also, I think I just needed to, you know, learn how to bike and keep concentration and have a plan, because I think the aerobic capacity was there, and there was some strength there, and those were, that was just a short bike and a couple little runs. So I was so green in the sport, I didn't know how to do that. So I remember when you passed me, my mind was all over the place. Like, I don't even know what I was thinking,
You
but
were,
I do
yeah, I
remember.
saw you, and honestly, from my side, sorry to interject. When I saw
No,
you, I'm
it's
like,
okay.
what's he doing? He's like it's like riding on a Sunday afternoon easily, like cruising. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
and then I
exactly what
called
I
you
was
out,
probably
and
doing.
then you like immediately focused and took off. Like, where did he get this energy from now? And I couldn't catch you afterwards.
It
So
was just
anyway,
channeling it. Yeah. Yeah.
so you took off then, yeah.
Yeah, and that was, I haven't done that race since, or a race like that. I don't even know if I can handle that double run anymore.
But
But that was a really cool, unique race. And then after that, went to Monterio, and then that year, that second year, I ended with my first half, which was Santa Cruz,
yes,
formerly the Big Kahuna. That was the first year that that Ironman had bought it. And they did keep that long sandy run towards the end.
that was the last
Um,
one. Okay,
yep,
probably with that long run, yeah.
yeah. I've since done that race 3 more times, and yeah, love that race. Another one that feels a little bit like a hometown race.
What's your PR on the half?
Oh, on the half, actually that was just this last December, as a 40-year-old, my new age group. And it was 4:30, just over 4:30.
Just over for where did you do this time?
Um, Indian Wells in
Indian Wells.
December.
Okay, you like this
Yeah,
race also. This is one of
I
your
like,
regular races.
well,
Yeah.
I like the heat. And so in December, if I can have an excuse to go somewhere that's a little warmer,
Yes.
and get some
Yeah.
sun, that's a draw for
That's a
me.
good race. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good race.
And a
And
fast race, and flat and flat, flat, flat. So definitely a good place if you want to try to get a nice
a
PR time.
PR.
That's a great place
Yes.
to do it. The run's not so flat. It's undulating, but it doesn't present
I
any
do
big
not like that
hills.
run. That's
It's
not,
if
yeah.
Have you done it? How many times have you done it?
I done it once. I did it once, and that run killed me. And that was through the golf course. Are they
Yeah.
still doing
So
that? Yeah.
after doing it once, the second time, although my run time wasn't as fast as the first time, I just didn't have the fitness that I had the first time for running. Um, Doing it the second time and practicing those undulations really helped, and having a
Yes.
little bit more technique to manage those, and knowing that I wasn't going to be able to just keep my form on a flat surface the entire time, and having a plan
Correct.
for that is how I was able to have a better run. Um, uh, I guess it wasn't a better time, but I felt much better the second time having a plan for that golf course. Because if you
Yes.
don't, like I didn't the first time, I had, I had trained my pace and trained my form, but mostly flat. In San Francisco, we
Yes.
either have flat or we have hill,
Or
hill,
hills.
hill, right?
Yes. Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
really no place to practice the undulations. This time, I found a place to go practice that. The Lafayette Reservoir gives you a bunch of, mild up and downs. And so
Yes.
practicing that descent, practicing keeping yourself from breaking too much on the descent, right?
Correct.
Shortening your stride for those ascents. And anytime you do a race the second time and you know a lot more about it, definitely
Correct.
helps.
You show up
So
better.
all
Yeah.
of that coming together helped me, PR again, flat course, perfect weather, can't complain about
Yeah.
that. Yeah, all of that helped me PR, even though I'm pretty sure I was in better shape in 2019, the first year I did it, compared
Okay.
to this year. I was just maybe a little wiser in my old age of
Correct.
40.
Yeah.
And I had a little better plan.
Yeah. So, okay. So, and this race is where you qualify for Taupo.
Yeah, yeah.
All
I
right.
came in
So
third in my age group, and we got 3 slots. So I was not
oh,
expecting that. However, I did ask Michaela if by chance, um,
yes.
now that I moved up to a 40-year-old age group, I don't know how everybody's placing in this age group yet. But if I by chance qualify, do you want to take these crazy boys to New Zealand?
To
And
New Zealand.
she emphatically said, "Let's do it." So
Nice.
um, we'll see how enthusiastic we are about it on our 13-hour flight over there. But yeah, once we're there, I think we'll have a great time.
Can you share like what's your plan? Like how far in advance are you planning to get there? And like what's your logistics heading into
Yeah,
Taupo?
I don't have all of the logistics figured out. I'd love to find a way to rent a bike, borrow a bike, get a bike there and not have my bike, but I'm also fine sending my bike. Um, since we're staying for another 2 weeks after the race, I was hoping to just not deal with the bike. But in terms of logistics of getting there, we fly technically 4 days before, but then that gets us there 2 days before because we lose a day and it's almost a full
Yes.
day flight. And so I don't have a lot of time. I We land at 5 in the morning in Auckland,
Yeah.
and then we drive 3 hours to the lake area, and then we have to set up before 5 o'clock that night. So we're crossing fingers there's no flight delays or anything, because then I'll be in big trouble because we have to get all checked in before the women race on Saturday, and then
Yes.
we race on Sunday. So um, hopefully there's no problems
Okay.
with that plan, but that's it for right now. Trying to
Okay.
maximize as much work as possible before we go and have a big long break. So that's just how we organized it.
Okay.
And they don't have flights every day, I believe, so it's kind of staggered. So that's what we're left with in terms of getting
This
there
is direct from SFO.
direct from SFO into
Nice.
Auckland.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And then we have an Airbnb on the lake. It's on the other side. So morning of, I'll be getting a ride with my dad, him, two
Are you
aunts,
taking the whole
my
cruise the whole cruise
yeah.
support crew?
I
Yeah.
think I think we have 13 or 14 people in the
Oh,
Airbnb.
wow. Yes.
Not including the
Nice.
boys. So yeah, so it's yeah. The last time I did Worlds, and honestly, anytime we travel, to be honest, there's some family joining us. But the last time I did Worlds in Nice, same thing. We had about 10 people
Big crew.
in the
Nice.
house at any given time. Everybody just looking for an excuse to travel and get some family time.
Nice. Nice. This
Yeah,
is awesome. And of
yeah,
course, this is a great way to go through the race for you also. Like you see all
yeah, yep,
your support. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
all your Sherpas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
All
remember
right.
at at the run portion of Nice, um, I I did not see that it's so packed. There's so many athletes and there's so many fans out there. I was I did not see family at all. I didn't even see Michaela out of the swim onto the bike. Nowhere on the bike. They could see me, but I never identified them. And finally, on the run portion, within the first mile, I see the group, and it's a big group. And I'd been racing for a long time. That's a hilly course. That was a long bike. So
Yes.
they had been partying, they had been drinking, they had the big group out there. So they're throwing their hands up to get my attention, and they catch my eye. I'm like, all right. And so finally see them, and this guy, this runner, just zooms by me right as I'm passing everybody, and I'm looking at him, and I'm looking at his kit. I'm like, hey man, you just passed me right in front of my whole family, made me look slow. Like, I'm gonna get you, right? I'm gonna find you and I'm gonna pass you. And that was the last time I saw him that entire day. Did not see him again.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really fun to have a big group at any race, especially when they've traveled all the way across the Pacific. So I'm
Of
excited.
course. Yeah, it's gonna be exciting.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. So okay, let's move a little bit now to your work,
Sure.
right? So you started Premier Health when we were together at Bodywork SF,
Yeah.
and you had your office there. That was your first office. That's how
Yeah.
like we met, and like I think we were doing a swap. I was like
Yeah.
informally coaching you, giving you tips, and I was getting my neck and back cracked
Yep.
in exchange. So
Yep.
which I miss, by the way. I
Yeah.
need to I need to
You got to
schedule an
see a
appointment.
chiropractor. Get somebody close to you, nice and convenient
We do
for you
have
to see.
we do have one in
Good.
one of the places that I'm working at. So
Good.
anyway, um Okay, you were doing triathlons
Yep.
and you started doing chiropractic work,
Yep.
and you started seeing athletes
Yep.
coming in your practice.
Yep.
And you, as a triathlete, uh, I'm assuming that you get chiropractic work on yourself.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. So tell me about the benefits, right, of chiropractic work
Yep.
for athletes, and then, well, maybe, yeah, start with that.
Yeah, sure. So the way that I approach chiropractic and just overall um, healthy living through paying attention to your body is very mechanical. Okay. And so um, I am not smart enough to figure out all the, um, fancy ways of putting it into a book, but I've read a lot of these books. People like Gray Cook and Kelly Starrett and Stuart McGill. These are all really good people to follow in terms of developing your knowledge base on how the body works, which is really important if you're going to subject yourself to overuse syndrome sports like triathlon, or like my wife's former profession, dancing, right? You will
Let me
take.
stop you just for a second.
Yeah.
Don't lose that. I want you to explain overuse stress
Yep.
activities. Yeah,
Yeah,
can you talk
overuse.
about, yeah, so people
Oh,
know what
you
that is about.
you can call it overuse or you can call it repetitive stress syndrome. That could even be a diagnosis if somebody's, kind of giving you an idea of perhaps why. Maybe that would be the mechanism of why you have something like a tendonitis, right? Um, Achy kneecap, that's going to be repetitive stress syndrome for overuse of your quadriceps or underdeveloped hamstrings, or overly tight quadriceps. Even calves can play into that. So it's basically saying you've used this muscle beyond what it can accept, right? You've
Yeah.
used this muscle beyond what it's capable of enduring. And so to bring it back to kind of developing your philosophy, I always recommend you break apart. There's the mobility side of things, and then there's the stability side of things. And Gray Cook and his book Movement is a really good resource for this, for people to get acquainted with these two approaches to mechanical health with your body. And I mentioned Michaela. So same thing,
Yeah.
whether it's triathlon, whether you're just in the gym and you kind of do the same exercises. Um, a dancer will get, a new routine and then they have to do it and practice it over and over and over. So it's the same
Correct.
movements. And so you want to understand the basics of taking those muscles that make those movements and learning how to regain that suppleness, that length, that hydration to those muscles. Then they are less likely to break, to fail, to get into that repetitive stress syndrome state. And at the same time, and maybe the most important part of keeping away that overuse syndrome, is making sure the muscle is strong enough to do what you're asking it to do. And that's the stability side of things. So taking both of these, and if this sounds daunting, if you're just being introduced to this, don't let it be daunting. Just know that there are two sides of this. You want to strengthen those muscles, and then after you strengthen them, your body is going to heal, because an approach to strengthening a muscle is breaking down that muscle, right? Then that night, when you go to sleep, it heals and it gets stronger for subsequent exposures to that type of breakdown. And in that process of healing, proliferating, remodeling, those muscle fibers, those sarcomeres, those individual muscles from tendon to tendon, they're going to tighten up. They're going to get a little harder. And then it's your job to go in and re-soften those using a foam roller, using a vibration gun, using your hands, getting massage, anything that goes in and offsets some of that tightness, some of that hardness that comes from using those muscles, our quads, our glutes, our hamstrings, our calves, your shoulder girdle and the scapular muscles for your swimming. Break them down, build them, get them trained, get them nice and strong, but then go in and make sure that you're re-softening and re-lengthening. To bring it back to chiropractic, that's just one of the things that we do. All those muscles along your spine that are working while you're holding yourself on that bike, or that you're stabilizing all those individual vertebrae of your spine, that's a lot of work for those muscles. And those muscles get tight. And the tighter they get, the harder it is for those individual vertebrae to move one on top of the other. So as they start to tighten up, the muscles tighten up, the actual individual vertebra aren't moving as well. You go see a chiropractor, they check those areas where you have some hard muscle along that spinal column. They check each individual joint to make sure that when we push on it, it pushes right back at us. This nice little rebound, right? And when you're feeling a spine that does not have this, it's stuck or fixated. It's restricted in an area. We learn in chiropractic school to go in and we can push through that, allowing for an escape of some of the gases that are locked in that joint. That's where you hear the little pop, the little crack, whatever you want to call it, just the same as cracking your knuckles, right?
Correct.
And now we've liberated some motion in that region of the spine. Now those muscles crossing it, now they get to do their job without that fixation or that restriction.
Correct.
So chiropractic is just one tool, along with your foam roller, along with your massage, along with your cross-training stability strength work, along with your training. So you put all of those together, and chiropractic can be helpful. Don't think by any means chiropractic is going to make you faster without all the other tools, but it is a nice little way to ensure that you're not asking your muscles that are already doing a lot of work, you're not asking them to also cross joints that are really stuck and fixated, because that could also bring them into that hardened, rigid state, and that could lead you down that path of getting into that overuse syndrome.
Right. And then, I mean, if one of these muscles is tight in the back, then that's going to radiate to other regions of your body, causing the imbalances. Yes. Yeah. So, okay. And how often? Like, what do you recommend? How often should an athlete should be? Yeah,
I hate to kind of dodge your question, but it's very subjective. The same as if somebody asked you for a quick little recommendation on how often you should be doing stability. It depends on your age. It depends on your body type. There's the main different phenotypes. You got your ectomorph, your endomorph, your mesomorph. A mesomorph that's really muscular, like myself, I'm very, very mesomorphic, thick wrists, thick ankles. I'm a stiff person generally and naturally, right? Then I do a lot of training and I stiffen further. So if I'm in a training block, I'd like to get adjusted twice a week. If I'm not in a training block and I'm just exercising, I still, I like once a week, but I would be okay with twice a month, right?
Okay. Yes.
And so again, it really depends. If you're, an ectomorph and you've got a lot of space between your vertebra, and you've got long muscles that have always been easy to stretch, you might not need a chiropractor as much as I do. But you better be in that gym strengthening a little bit more to make sure that you're building the stability. So it really depends on too many factors to just give a general frequency suggestion and recommendation. But I do recommend that you kind of test it out. Most people go see a chiropractor once something has broken. It is very rare, and I would love if this was the case, that somebody walks into my office and they say, I'm feeling really strong. I've been working on my mobility, but I just wanted I wanted to learn a little bit more about how to, optimally treat my joints for longevity. I've never heard that once.
Oh,
It's
that's
it's
our all our
always,
wishes are, and in this field that we are, I'm on the personal training field as well, and you're in the chiropractic field. Like, we wish that people showed up to say, I just want to be healthier.
yeah,
But it's
yeah,
it's just like they come after they need the fix.
yep, yeah.
Yeah,
And so you want to find a chiropractor that's, convenient for you, chiropractor that maybe accepts your insurance. That's always nice to have your insurance pay a portion of it. And then you want to test out some frequencies. You can be over adjusted, but you can also be under adjusted. So you can start off, especially if you start off free of an acute injury where you're trying to also work through a bunch of edema and inflammation. Um, you can go in and just say, I'm going to try once a week for a couple weeks and see how it treats you. If you are listening to this and you're going to wait to see a chiropractor until something is broken, just know that it is a lot harder to assess what the problem is because you're walking different, you're moving different. I can do a mechanics test on somebody using a whole host of movement patterns. For instance, a squat, I can pick up a lot of information from how somebody's moving, doing a squat and asking them, go a little bit deeper. How do you feel doing that? And seeing how their body responds to that. Or raising a dowel overhead and just looking at some
correct.
general glenohumeral joint range of motion. But if you come in acutely injured, I'm not going to have you do a squat. You're probably going to re-injure yourself. So
Right, right.
if you wait until you're injured to go see a chiropractor, which I'm sure some of you are listening to this thinking, no, I'm just going to go in, and then before you know it, life gets away, and then find yourself in a chiropractor's office injured, because it does happen. Just know that, make it through that acute phase and then start to explore using something like chiropractic as, maintenance or supportive care, whatever you want to call it. Just a little check-in. Check out my spine and how it's moving, and are there any areas that could be moving better, and that will liberate a lot of those muscles in that region for optimal performance. And if you're listening to this podcast, you're most likely doing triathlon, which of course we break apart in every aspect of our sport. We spend way too much money on all these fancy gadgets. But what if you're dealing with a real lack of range of motion
Yeah,
in some of your joints? That, man, that's, chiropractic's not free, but it's pretty affordable compared to overusing a hip, overusing a knee, or not paying attention to the health of your foot, and slowly but surely you're wearing holes in your meniscus.
yes,
And so it's not a bad idea to go in and see somebody. I'll be the first one to acknowledge, not every chiropractor is going to, speak to an athlete the way that we do, and talk about things mechanically. So try to find somebody whose, reviews say they work with athletes or they do soft tissue care, which I think is a non-negotiable. If you're working with an athlete, you need to address the soft tissue side of things. And so give it a try, and hopefully I can talk you into doing it before something's broken or before something's
correct.
injured. It is the best way to utilize what we do.
Okay. So I'm gonna move now on to the active release techniques,
Yeah,
and this is related to the soft tissue work, right?
exactly.
That you're
Yep.
mentioning. Yeah.
Yep.
Tell me about what it is, how does it work, and again, why? Like, tell me about it.
Yeah, it's a pin and stretch method, where an ART provider, they're usually either physical therapists or chiropractors or massage therapists. You scan the region, and you're looking for muscles that have hypertonicity, or that hardness, or that rigidity. We're trained in looking for these trigger points, these little hard spots, essentially just a muscle knot, right? And when we find these knotted up pieces of tissue, these little imperfect regions of that muscle, we go through a bunch of protocols, and you've got to pass a test, and it's just kind of validating that you know your anatomy and you know how to identify these knots. And then we use our hands, typically our thumbs, to put some pressure down on that little rigid piece of muscle. And then we have you actively, that's why it's called active release technique, we have you actively move those muscles going through that range of motion as we're trying to break up that knotted
Loosen up.
tissue, and
Yeah.
those little imperfections, those little calcific deposits, those little bits of inflammation, whatever it is. You know, when you've got a little hard spot in, say, a calf, you're foam rolling your calf, and you feel that little spot, it's a little more sensitive. It's irritated. It's a little piece of tissue that tried to repair, but then you went and you broke it down again. And now it hasn't been able to complete that cycle of tissue repair. It hasn't completed that remodeling circle, right? The last part of that circle is rehydrating and suppling that piece of tissue, but then you went and you broke it down again. So it just hasn't been able to heal properly. So now it's just full of this crud, this byproduct of that tissue repair. And you basically, you can use a lacrosse ball, a tennis ball, a foam roller, whatever it is, and try to, knead into that, put pressure into that and get rid of it. But if that's still not working, go see an ART provider. You'll be
Yeah.
surprised how much more effective it is. And when you're developing these knots in a piece of flesh that's not easy to get, like the calf or the quad, say it's one of the shoulder girdle muscles, it's one of the rotator cuffs from a lot of
Yeah.
swimming,
Yeah.
that's a really great place to go in. Or the erector spinae that go up and down the spine. How many times do you do a long bike, especially in a narrow position? You stand up and you're like, oh my gosh, that's tighter than normal. Something's going on in
Yes.
there. Yeah, those muscles are needing a little bit of attention, a little bit of love, and it's not so easy to go through that range of motion and maintain some pressure on some of those erector muscles on the back. That's a great reason to go see an ART provider. And some of them, again, will be chiropractors, and then you get the combo, but some will be massage therapists. And
Okay.
activereleasetechnique.com, if you go to that website, you can put in your zip code and see some ART providers in your area. And again, I
Activereleasetechnique.com. Yeah.
technique.com. Yeah. And so it's a great way to start the process. And I always say, whether it's massage or seeing a chiropractor, use that as kind of a screening of where you need to keep up your own work, right? So if you go in for a massage, whether or not they're ART certified, they're feeling throughout the whole body, and you can recognize that area that's, a little more sensitive. But since you don't foam roll the whole body, maybe some of you do, that's amazing if you have the time for that. But if you don't, if you don't feel this little area, say in your hamstring, because you're not constantly feeling your hamstrings, and then the massage therapist is pushing their palms through that area, and you're like, whoa, I can't believe that area. I didn't
Yes.
even realize. Gosh, she could have just exposed an area that is now on your radar, that for the next couple days until you see them again, you can work that out on your own and do
Yes.
it before the meat of that training block, or do it before the race. And then, you're on mile 10 of your half marathon, and your hamstring seizes up or your calf
Yes.
seizes up. Had you been working on that area with somebody that's nice and close to you and convenient, so you can put it into a routine, you could have kept a really close eye on that region and prevented it from potentially, ruining your race
Yes.
or your
Yeah.
training.
There are a couple of I always I've been actually recommending this to some of my athletes and clients in personal training. You showed me a couple of techniques that I still use on myself
Yep.
also, and
Yeah.
it's probably, well, the first one is part of that I think of the active release therapy
Yep.
technique,
Yep.
or active release technique work. It's using the lacrosse ball.
Yep.
So from swimming, like, of course, we're strength training. We do strength training, and it's the reaction of the bodies get tight. Then you go
Yep.
swimming and your shoulder starts hurting, and it's the shoulder's hurting because your trapezius is getting tighter.
Yep.
And so I always grab the lacrosse ball and press that lacrosse ball against the
Yep.
wall, against the trapezius, and let the
Yep.
arm hang. And I'm like, thank you, Nick. You showed me this one. And then the other one that I use is with the TRX. And when I grab the TRX and put my hand on the foot strap, and then just extend and stretch and stretch to get that space in the shoulder,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I mean the shoulder is such a small joint
Yep.
with so much traffic going through it.
Yep.
And then you walk away from the TRX and put your hand behind with a thumb, and you walk away and open that space. So
Yep.
those two moves, like I have some of my athletes and clients use it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'm like, and I think always thank to Dr. Nick for
Yeah.
for
So
those two.
all,
Yeah.
yeah, that's exactly what I was doing, is essentially replacing my own thumb, right, with
Yes.
that lacrosse ball, and then showing you what movement to make to replicate a little bit of what somebody performing ART on that trigger point in your trapezius would be doing. And the trap is a tricky one, and I remember showing you that. Um, because it kind of sits on top of your shoulder, it's tricky. So
Yes.
that's why you've got all those funky movements to go in the door jam and let your arm
Yes.
hang, and they're not
Yes.
all that
Yeah.
complicated. And people who are ART certified are really excited to let you know they're ART certified and show you some things. So if you go to YouTube,
Yes.
you can find all
I love
kinds of
all these
these
things. Yeah.
cool little maneuvers to releasing your muscles. A great place to get started and try some things out. If it hurts with sharpshooting, stabbing, any of these moves that you're going to try out, now that I said go to the YouTubes and go try
Better.
something. If it's sharpshooting, stabbing, or hurts worse afterwards, please stop and go see somebody
Yes.
that can show you in person how to do these things, because it
Yeah.
is easy to take especially a lacrosse ball. It's pretty unforgiving. Put it in the
Yes.
wrong area and actually release a bursa, a little fluid filled sac, and now you're saying, "Gosh, this ART is the worst thing ever."
So don't
So,
rely on Dr. YouTube.
but it is good to go have somebody show you what it feels like to have the right
Yes.
depth. That's another thing that we do in these seminars when you get certified. Um, we learn how to get the right depth for that muscle and get our hands attenuated at finding these imperfections and then releasing them, not to put you into pain, but the right amount of
Yeah.
force to break up that junk in there,
Yeah.
regain some of that suppleness to allow some more hydration into the area
Yeah.
without crushing those little muscle collagen bonds. So, just be careful not to, you know, do too much with something like a lacrosse ball or a
Yeah.
really
Because it could,
hard
yes,
tool. You
it
can
can, it
overdo it.
can rebound. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't want to
Um,
release a joint. You want to move a joint. You want to stabilize a joint. When it comes to releasing, now I'm all worried people are going to go hurt themselves as we're talking. But you want the meaty muscles if you're going to go apply something like a lacrosse ball, the meat part of the muscle, not even the tendon. You want the meaty
Yes,
part
yeah,
of the
you don't,
muscle.
yeah, you don't work on the joint. That's to put it
Yeah,
in simple words.
yeah.
Yeah, you don't push on the joint, you push on the muscles
Yeah.
around it.
And
Yeah,
then you
yeah,
can stretch, yeah, you can go through the full ranges of motion, which I highly recommend afterwards. And then I
correct.
think you're safe.
Yeah. Okay, so we're approaching the final
Okay,
I mean the last minutes of our podcast. And there's so much to talk about,
sure.
like you, I mean, we need to like probably do another podcast and tell us also about your business,
Yeah, sure.
like how you grew your business
Sure.
in such a fast period also.
And then if
And
you've got some of your clients who even want to focus on a particular body part that keeps bugging it. I mean, I know in our sport it could be all of them, but like knees, shoulders, anything where some of your clients are really struggling. Yeah, we could even have a podcast isolated to a region or two, and we can just
all
kind of
right.
talk a bit about that. What we do is very hands-on and mechanical. That's what we do in the office. It's a great way to assess. and then give some good recommendations, right? But also knowing a little bit about the nature of, say, the knee, a big dumb joint, two big bones coming together, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't have a lot of mobility. Understanding what it actually looks like in there, having a little wherewithal about the anatomy and how it's supposed to move before you go into an office and have a clinician check it out and actually assess
Yeah.
it. I think that's a great idea, and you'll be a better athlete the more you know about these joints that keep failing on you.
Correct. Yeah, I think it's a responsibility as an athlete to know your body. Like you are responsible of this machine.
You're your own advocate for
Yes.
keeping your body together. And honestly, I think, and not just saying this because this is a triathlon podcast, but I do think us triathletes are some of the most knowledgeable athletes out there. And I think it's because we're always breaking. And what's the first thing you do when something's not just better the next day? It's this little niggle that keeps sticking around. What do? You Google it. And then,
Google, yeah.
you could go down the dark side there on a dark path, but you can also get a lot of the basics and the rudimentary knowledge of a region once you start doing some research.
Yes. Yeah, I agree on that. Yeah. All right. So, okay, before we say goodbye,
Yeah.
people that are, so you have 4 locations, 3 of
Yep.
them in San Francisco and 1 in the East Bay,
Yep.
right? And okay, if they want to find you, like, where do they go? Where do our listeners go?
Premier Health Chiropractic. If you Google us, you'll find us.
Okay, Dr. Nick Cruze with a Z at the end, with an E at the end. So Cruze, cruising for a bruising.
Yeah.
We had fun in Cabo, huh?
Oh yeah, that was great. That's a different podcast.
That's another podcast for
You
another
got to have
episode.
the E on that podcast.
Yes. Anyway, well, thank you, Nick. For are you on social media also, or just go to the
Yeah,
website?
I'm on Instagram. Don't post as much as I used to, but another place you could probably dig out some cool moves, like Luis and I were talking about releasing some muscles. I think my last couple posts are just of my boys. So if you want to see the cutest boys on the planet, you can go there. But it's Cruze to Health on Instagram. And my wife is Michaela's Cruising. Another great resource. She's a pre and postnatal personal trainer. Another great resource for some of that stability work that we've been mentioning, strengthening your body, and especially with her, it's strengthening the ancillary muscles, we call it. Those are kind of the backup and assistant muscles. Since she's pre and postnatal, she's doing a lot of pelvic bowl work. So if you're a triathlete and you've got all those chiseled muscles and you're looking good, don't disregard the importance of the pelvic bowl. That's basically the bottom of the core, right?
Yes.
Hopefully none of you have dealt with, like adductor tendonitis or osteitis pubis, anything like that, but a lot of runners do. And what do? We send them right out for PT for their pelvic bowl. So yeah, again, any region
Yeah.
I could go on and on about it.
Yes.
So we'll do this again, but yeah, a couple good resources to get some good information. Or if you are pregnant or you have a wife who's pregnant, my wife is a really good follow to get their body ready for this or to recover from it.
And with experience, having to
now she's got some street cred.
Yes.
Now she's done it twice.
Nice. All right. Well, congratulations on the boys, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
They are wonderful, what I've seen. Yeah. And well, say hi to Michaela. It's been great catching up with you. Don't go yet. I'm gonna send this out and then we'll say our goodbyes.
Great.
So thank you everyone again for joining the podcast. Again, this is the APX podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned, you got some knowledge today. You can always find me on Instagram at Landarcia, and that's my Instagram handle. The APX podcast comes out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And yes, I'm a coach too, and you know where to find me with that information that I just gave you. Thank you again for joining. Don't forget to give us a 5-star rating and follow us so you know when the next episode comes in. Thank you again, and goodbye.